Something inside you is about to be exposed. Not your strength, not your willpower, but your frequency. In the next 47 seconds, a silent test begins. One that most people will fail without even realizing why. This isn't sound, it's alignment. It's pressure without touch. It's energy deciding whether you can hold yourself together when nothing visible is happening. And here's the truth no one wants to admit. 99% will feel something they can't control. And they'll run from it. Only 1% will remain. Calm, centered, unshaken. So before this begins, make a choice. Are you here to observe or to prove something to yourself? If you're ready to test your mind, your body, and whatever lies deeper than both, subscribe right now, like this video, and comment "I remain" before the timer starts. Because once it begins, there's no turning back. The moment you decide to begin, something shifts. Not around you, but within you. Like a silent door unlocking in a place you've never consciously visited before. And even though nothing in your environment changes, your awareness subtly sharpens, as if your body already knows what's coming before your mind can catch up, and that's the first sign that this isn't just a challenge. It's a confrontation between your internal state and an external frequency designed not to harm you, not to overwhelm you, but to reveal you, to strip away distractions and leave you alone with your raw energetic baseline. And that's where most people begin to feel uneasy, because we spend our lives avoiding that exact state. Pure, undistracted self-awareness, without noise, without stimulation, without escape. And in that silence, even the smallest internal imbalance starts to feel amplified, like a whisper turning into an echo that refuses to fade. And as the timer begins ticking down from 47 seconds, your brain tries to rationalize it, tries to stay in control, telling you this is just a sound, just a video, just another experiment. But your body doesn't respond to logic. It responds to frequency, and frequencies don't negotiate. They interact, they influence, they resonate, or they clash. And in these first few seconds, something subtle begins to happen. Something so small you might miss it if you're not paying attention. Your breathing changes. Not dramatically, just slightly, maybe a little shallower or a little deeper than before, and your heartbeat becomes just a bit more noticeable. Not faster necessarily, but more present, like it's stepping forward into your awareness. And that's when the real test begins. Because now your mind has a choice: to stay still and observe, or to interfere, to question, to doubt, to resist. And resistance is where most people start to lose. Not because the frequency is overpowering, but because the mind cannot tolerate what it doesn't control. And as seconds pass, 5, 6, 7, you might feel a faint pressure, maybe in your temples, maybe behind your eyes, maybe in your chest or your hands, and it's not pain, it's not discomfort in the usual sense, it's something harder to define, like your body is adjusting to a signal it doesn't fully understand. And this is where people start to shift in their seats. They open their eyes, they check their surroundings, they look for something external to explain what's happening internally. But there is nothing to see, nothing to blame, nothing to escape from except the sensation itself. And that realization alone is enough to make most people break focus. Because staying still requires trust, and trust requires surrender. And surrender is something the average mind has been trained to avoid at all costs. And by the time you reach second 10, something deeper begins to unfold. Because now your awareness is no longer passive, it's engaged. You're not just sitting there, you're feeling. Maybe your vision behind closed eyes starts to flicker with faint patterns, or your thoughts begin to slow down, or speed up. And that contrast is important, because not everyone reacts the same way. Some people feel calm, almost unnaturally calm, like their body is syncing perfectly with the frequency, while others feel a rising tension, like something inside them is pushing back, trying to reject the experience. And neither reaction is right or wrong, but both are revealing, because they show you your baseline, your default state when stripped of distractions. And most people don't like what they discover in that moment, not because it's bad, but because it's unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things feel threatening to the brain, even when they're harmless. And that's why so many people won't make it past the first 15 seconds. Not because they can't, but because they won't. They'll convince themselves it's pointless, fake, unnecessary, anything to justify stepping away from something they don't fully understand. And yet, if you're still here, still focused, still breathing without forcing it, something interesting begins to happen. Your body starts to adapt. The initial resistance, if there was any, begins to soften, and the pressure, whatever form it took, either stabilizes or transforms into something else, something quieter, more neutral, almost like background noise. And that's a critical turning point, because it means you're not fighting it anymore, you're allowing it. And in that allowance, your system begins to regulate itself, not perfectly, not instantly, but noticeably. And this is where the difference between the 99% and the 1% starts to become clear. Not in dramatic reactions, but in subtle endurance, in the ability to stay present without needing to escape. And as the seconds continue to move, 20, 21, 22, you might notice your thoughts becoming less dominant, not gone, but quieter, like they're losing their urgency. And in their place, there's a kind of stillness, not emptiness, but space. And that space can feel peaceful, or unsettling depending on what you're used to. Because for many people, silence isn't calming. It's uncomfortable. It forces you to face what's usually drowned out by noise. And in this challenge, there is no noise to hide behind, only you, your breath, your heartbeat, and whatever this frequency is bringing to the surface. And for some, that might be calm. For others, it might be tension. For others, nothing at all. And that nothing is perhaps the most misunderstood response, because it doesn't mean the frequency isn't working. It means your awareness hasn't tuned into it yet, or that your system is so used to constant stimulation that subtle changes go unnoticed. And that in itself is a revelation, because it shows how disconnected we've become from our own internal signals. And as you approach second 30, the description becomes reality. Your body either relaxes or resists. And that moment isn't loud, it's not dramatic, it's a quiet shift, like a fork in the road you didn't realize you were approaching. And whichever direction you go in that moment says more about your current state than anything else in this experience. Because it's not about strength, it's not about endurance, it's about alignment. About whether your system can remain steady in the presence of something unfamiliar without needing to control it. And if you can, even just a little, even just enough to stay until the end, then you're already stepping into that 1%. Not because you're special, but because you're willing to stay when others would leave. And that willingness is the real challenge, the real test, the real beginning of understanding what it means to remain. As the seconds continue slipping away, something far more powerful than the frequency itself begins to rise. And it's not external, it's your own mind, quietly stepping in to reclaim control over an experience it cannot predict. And this is where the real challenge intensifies. Because up until now, everything you've felt has been physical or subtle, changes in breath, pressure, awareness. But now the psychological layer activates, and it does so in a way that feels almost invisible at first, like a thought that doesn't seem important enough to notice, a small question forming in the background. Is this even doing anything? And that single thought, if entertained, begins a chain reaction. Because your mind isn't designed to sit in uncertainty. It's designed to resolve it, to label it, to either accept or reject it. And when it cannot find a clear answer, it leans toward rejection, not out of truth, but out of protection. And suddenly, the stillness you were holding starts to feel heavier, not because the frequency has changed, but because your relationship to it has. And this is the exact moment where most people unknowingly fail. Not by stopping the challenge, but by mentally checking out, by disconnecting from the experience while still physically present, convincing themselves that nothing is happening, that it's just silence, just imagination, just another empty promise. And yet, if you stay aware, truly aware, you'll notice that something deeper is unfolding beneath that doubt, because doubt itself is not random. It's a signal. It's your system encountering something unfamiliar and trying to interpret it. And instead of pushing that doubt away, something powerful happens when you simply observe it without reacting, when you notice the thought but don't follow it, when you let it pass like a cloud instead of turning it into a storm. And in that small act of observation, you create space. And that space is where transformation begins. Not dramatic, not explosive, but subtle and controlled, like a quiet recalibration happening beneath the surface. And as you move past second 30 into the final stretch, your awareness sharpens in a different way. Not outward, but inward. As if your senses are turning back toward you, scanning, adjusting, aligning. And this is where many start to feel a strange contrast. A push and pull between calm and discomfort, like part of you is settling while another part resists. And that duality is not a flaw, it's a reflection of how layered your internal state really is. Because you're not just one reaction, you're many systems operating at once. And this frequency, whether you believe in its origin or not, is acting like a mirror, showing you those layers in real time. And the value in this moment is not in passing the challenge. It's in recognizing what arises when you are placed in stillness without distraction. Because that same reaction, whether it's anxiety, restlessness, calm, or numbness, exists in your daily life. It's just usually buried under noise, under movement, under constant stimulation. And here, in these final seconds, you're given a rare opportunity to see it clearly, to witness your baseline without interference. And that awareness alone is powerful. Because you cannot change what you do not see. And as the timer approaches its end, 40, 41, 42, you might notice a shift again, a subtle release. Like your body is letting go of something it was holding without you realizing it. Or perhaps a slight tension remains. But now you're aware of it in a way you weren't before. And that awareness transforms the experience from something passive into something intentional. Because now you're not just reacting, you're understanding. And in those final seconds, the question is no longer, can you handle it? But, can you stay with it? Can you remain present without needing it to change? Without needing to escape? Without needing to label it as good or bad, real or fake, success or failure? And if you can, even imperfectly, even with moments of doubt, then you've already stepped beyond what most people ever reach. Because the real 1% is not about feeling nothing, it's about remaining despite everything. And as the timer finally reaches 0, there is no dramatic ending, no sudden shift, just silence again. But now that silence feels different. Not empty, but full, like something has settled into place. And in that stillness, you're left with the most important part of this entire experience. The reflection, because what you felt or didn't feel is not the result. It is the information. It's the data your body and mind have given you about your current state. And the value here, the real significance, is what you choose to do with that awareness moving forward. Because this challenge was never about 47 seconds, it was about showing you what exists within you when everything else is stripped away. And once you've seen that, even briefly, you can begin to work with it, to strengthen your calm, to understand your resistance, to reconnect with sensations you've been ignoring. And that's where the real transformation begins. Not in the frequency, but in your response to it. Because the 1% dawn just remain in a moment like this. They learn from it. They carry that awareness into everything they do. And over time, that awareness becomes stability. That stability becomes control. And that control becomes something far more valuable than passing any challenge. It becomes mastery over your own internal state. As the challenge appears to end, most people assume the experience is over. But this is where something far more important begins. Because what follows the 47 seconds is not emptiness, it's echo. A subtle continuation of everything your system just processed. And if you stay still for just a little longer, resisting the urge to move, to check your phone, to distract yourself, you'll notice that the silence now feels different than it did before. It's no longer just the absence of sound, it carries a kind of presence. Almost like your awareness has expanded into the space around you. And that shift is easy to miss if you rush away from it. But if you remain, even for a few breaths, you'll begin to sense something deeper. Your body recalibrating, your mind reorganizing, your internal state revealing patterns that were hidden just moments ago. And this is where the real separation happens. Not between those who completed the 47 seconds and those who didn't, but between those who observe what comes after and those who immediately return to distraction, because the value of this entire experience is not locked inside the timer, it's unlocked in the awareness that follows it. And in this moment, you're given a rare opportunity to witness yourself without interference, without noise, without the constant pull of external input. And what you notice now matters more than anything you felt during the challenge itself. Because now your reactions are not influenced by anticipation. They're authentic, unfiltered, and real. And maybe you feel calm, deeper than usual, like your thoughts have slowed and your body feels lighter. And if that's the case, then something aligned within you. Something resonated with the frequency in a way that allowed your system to settle rather than resist. And that's not something to ignore, it's something to recognize. Because it shows you that calm is not something you need to chase. It's something you can access when you remove interference. And that realization alone holds immense value, because it shifts your perspective from finding peace to allowing it. And on the other hand, maybe you feel unsettled. Maybe there's a lingering tension in your chest, a restlessness in your thoughts, a subtle discomfort you can't quite explain. And instead of seeing that as failure, this is where the deeper value emerges. Because what you're feeling is not caused by the frequency. It's revealed by it. It's something that was already present within you, brought to the surface when everything else was stripped away. And that awareness is powerful, because it gives you a clear signal, a starting point, a place to begin understanding your own internal patterns. And most people go their entire lives without ever noticing these signals, constantly distracting themselves, constantly moving, constantly filling every moment with noise, so they never have to face what lies beneath. But in this moment, you've done something different. You've paused, you've stayed, and you've seen something real, even if it's uncomfortable. And that alone places you ahead of where you were before. Because awareness is the first step toward change. And change cannot happen without it. And then there are those who felt nothing at all. No calm, no discomfort, just neutrality. And this is often the most confusing outcome, because it feels like a lack of result, like nothing happened. But in reality, this too holds significance, because it raises an important question. Are you truly unaffected? Or are you disconnected from subtle internal signals? And that question is not meant to judge, but to guide, because in a world filled with constant stimulation, it's easy for the mind and body to become desensitized, to require stronger and stronger input just to notice anything at all. And if that's the case, then this nothing you felt is not emptiness. It's a signal in itself, pointing toward a need to reconnect, to slow down, to become more aware of the quieter layers of your experience. And that process doesn't happen instantly. It begins with moments like this, where you intentionally step away from noise and allow yourself to feel whatever is present, even if that presence seems like nothing at first. Because over time, with consistency, that nothing begins to reveal more subtle sensations, small shifts, quiet signals that were always there but went unnoticed. And this is where the deeper transformation lies, not in dramatic reactions, but in refined awareness, in the ability to notice what others overlook. And as you sit in this post-challenge stillness, something else becomes clear. The experience didn't change you, it showed you where you already are. And that distinction is important, because it removes the idea that growth comes from external sources, from tools, from frequencies, from challenges, and places it where it truly belongs, within your own awareness and your willingness to engage with it. And that's the beautiful significance of this moment, because it gives you control, not over the frequency, not over the experience, but over your response to it. And your response is where everything begins, because once you can observe yourself without immediately reacting, once you can feel something without needing to escape it, once you can sit in stillness without searching for distraction, you begin to develop a kind of stability that is rare, a groundedness that doesn't depend on external conditions. And that stability is what the 1% truly represents, not some exclusive group, but a state of being, a level of awareness where you are no longer controlled by every sensation, every thought, every impulse, but instead, you witness them, understand them, and choose how to respond. And that choice is the most valuable thing you can gain from this entire experience, because it extends far beyond these 47 seconds, into every moment of your life, into every reaction, every decision, every challenge you face, and as you slowly come back, as you open your eyes or shift your focus, you carry something with you, something subtle but meaningful, a clearer sense of where you stand internally, and with that clarity, you now have the ability to move forward with intention, to strengthen what is stable, to work through what is resistant, and to reconnect with what feels distant. And that is the true purpose of this challenge, not to prove that you can endure 47 seconds, but to show you that within those seconds lies a reflection of yourself. And within that reflection lies the opportunity to grow, to refine, and to become someone who doesn't just survive moments of pressure, but remains steady within them, no matter what. And now, as everything settles and the experience fully lands, there's one final realization that quietly rises above all the sensations, all the thoughts, all of the reactions, and it changes the meaning of this entire challenge in a way most people never notice. Because the truth is, the 47 seconds were never the real test. You were, your awareness was, your ability to remain present without escaping, without labeling, without needing immediate answers. And that's why the idea of the 1% has nothing to do with superiority. It has everything to do with state, because the 1% are not those who feel nothing, they are the ones who can feel everything, and still remain steady, and that's a level of control that doesn't come from force, it comes from understanding, from repeated moments of choosing awareness over reaction, presence over distraction, stillness over noise. And what you just experienced, whether it felt intense, subtle, or even empty, was a doorway into that understanding, a brief but powerful glimpse into how your internal world operates when everything external is stripped away. And if you truly reflect on it, you'll realize something important. This wasn't just about sound or frequency, it was about your relationship with yourself. Because every sensation you noticed, every thought that appeared, every urge to stop or continue, all of it came from within you, not the outside. And that means the power to shift it, to understand it, to refine it, also exists within you. And that's where the true significance lies. Because once you recognize that your reactions are not fixed, that your state is not permanent, that your awareness can grow stronger with intention, you begin to step into a different way of living. One where you are not constantly pulled in every direction by what you feel or think, but instead you become the one observing, choosing, guiding, and that shift, even if it starts small, changes everything over time. Because life itself is filled with moments that feel like this challenge. Unexpected pressure, unfamiliar sensations, situations you cannot fully control. And in those moments, most people react automatically, driven by habit, by fear, by discomfort. But the ones who have trained themselves to remain, even briefly, even imperfectly, respond differently. They pause, they observe, they stay grounded. And that grounded presence allows them to move through challenges with clarity instead of chaos. And that is the real meaning of remaining standing. Not physically, but energetically, mentally, emotionally. And the beautiful part is, this is not something reserved for a select few. It's something anyone can develop, starting with moments exactly like this, where you choose to stay instead of escape, to observe instead of react, to understand instead of ignore. And each time you do that, you strengthen a part of yourself that most people never even realize exists, a quiet stability that doesn't depend on circumstances, a calm that doesn't require perfect conditions, a clarity that remains even when things feel uncertain, and that is far more valuable than passing any challenge or fitting into any percentage, because it stays with you. It grows with you. It becomes part of how you experience the world, and as you carry this forward, there's something important to remember. You don't need a 47-second timer to access this state again. You can return to it anytime, in any moment, simply by becoming aware of your breath, your body, your thoughts, without judgment, without force, just observation. And in that observation, you reconnect with the same stillness you touched here, the same awareness that allowed you to remain, and over time, that connection becomes stronger, more natural, more consistent, until one day you realize that what once felt like a challenge has become your baseline, your default way of being, and that is where true growth reveals itself, not in dramatic breakthroughs, but in quiet consistency, in the small, repeated choices to stay present, to stay grounded, to stay aware. And before you leave this moment, take one final pause. just a single breath, and notice where you are now compared to where you were before you started. Even if the difference feels small, it matters, because awareness always begins subtly and grows with attention. And if you've made it this far, if you stayed through the experience, if you allowed yourself to feel, to observe, to reflect, then you've already done something meaningful, something most people avoid, and that deserves recognition, not from others, but from yourself, because real progress is often invisible to the outside world, but deeply felt within. And as you move forward from here, carry this with you. Not the idea of passing or failing, not the need to prove anything, but the simple understanding that you have the ability to remain, to observe, to choose your response. And that ability is your strength, your anchor, your advantage in a world that constantly pulls people away from themselves. And now, a final message for you. No matter what you felt in these 47 seconds, calm or chaos, something or nothing, you are not behind, you are not lacking. You are simply becoming aware, and that is the beginning of everything. So keep going, keep observing, keep strengthening that quiet presence within you. Because the more you do, the more unshakable you become, not by force, but by understanding. And if this experience made you feel something, think differently, or see yourself more clearly even for a moment, then don't let it end here. Take that awareness into your next moment, and the next, and the next, and watch how it transforms the way you experience everything around you. And if you're still here right now, comment, "I remain," not to prove it to anyone else, but to remind yourself of what you just discovered. Share this with someone who needs to reconnect with themselves and stay connected for more experiences that challenge not just what you can do, but who you are becoming, because the 1% don't announce themselves. They simply remain, and now you know what that truly means.